Joining us for conversation today is Susan Bitensky, who's a lawyer and teaches at the MSU College of Law in East Lansing and is in town tonight to speak at the Institute for Global Education's annual meeting on corporal punishment of children and the law. Susan, thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
This is a topic that I think maybe bewilders a lot of folks in many ways. Either because they think it's maybe an intrusive issue to talk about, but I'm just wondering if you could maybe speak to when you speak to audiences, the general reaction you get from people about the issue of whether or not corporal punishment is a justice issue or not.
Well, the reaction tends to be varied. I get everything from extreme hostility to extreme receptivity. Which I think in itself is very interesting because not so long ago, most Americans would not be receptive at all. And in fact, polling data shows that there is a shift in Americans' acceptance of this practice, that less and less is it being regarded as something socially acceptable to do to your children.
I mean, I often hear, and I certainly was kind of raised in the same environment where this notion that maybe children are more disrespectful today because parents and educators either don't or cannot, employ the use of corporal punishment as a method of disciplining children. How do you respond to that claim?
Well, the science to date shows that corporal punishment actually is counterproductive. It, first of all, in terms of teaching children any moral lessons or helping them develop a conscience, which after all is one of the main goals of child discipline, the science shows that corporal punishment actually is correlated with impeding development of a conscience and with impeding cognitive development. So it's not an effective tool. It also is correlated with at least 10 adverse outcomes for the child, some of which are fairly serious. For example, corporal punishment is correlated with child aggression, with child mental problems or emotional problems, with child antisocial tendencies. And sadly, it also actually impedes the parent-child relationship rather than furthering it. So if one of the concerns is that children are not, in our era, being respectful towards adults, corporal punishment is certainly not the way to encourage that respect, since it tends to make children angry, aggressive, and interfere with parent-child relations.
As a lawyer and somebody who teaches at the College of Law at MSU, what has changed from a legal point of view, what has changed about how states or around the country, how people view or what has been done to shift legal practices around the issue of corporal punishment?
Well, in the United States, there has been really a trajectory in the law of rejecting corporal punishment of children. In 1977, only 3 states outlawed school corporal punishment. That number is now 28. 28 states ban all school corporal punishment. And even in the remaining 22 states, many state legislatures have left it up to local school districts whether to disallow the practice or not. And in fact, the major metropolitan school districts, most of them have forbidden the practice. So there's a tremendous shift over the last 30, 40 years with respect to paddling in the schools. It also is forbidden in the prisons with respect to children. And in fact, in most institutional care situations, such as daycare. The one place where in the United States legal protection remains unassailed for this practice is in the family. All 50 states protect reasonable corporal punishment of children by parents. And I put reasonable in quotation marks because given the scientific findings, I don't think any corporal punishment is actually reasonable anymore.
And what kind of legal support have, parent groups or parents individually received, and who's sort of continued to sort of defend that this idea of reasonable punishment in the homes, or are there any movements that have been that have surfaced to sort of counter the work that you and other people have been doing?
Well, I would put it this way. I think, chicken and egg, which came first. Actually here it's possible to come up with an answer, which is that our culture has always approved historically of legalized corporal punishment of children, and it's only in the last 10-20 years that a counter movement has developed where certain Americans are saying this is not okay. Actually, I just misspoke for this reason. Before the Emancipation Proclamation, abolitionists actually were engaged in a very serious campaign against legalized corporal punishment of children. But after the Civil War, that movement with respect to the children really died out and was only revived again within the last 20 years.
Interesting. So, any specific folks in terms of the abolitionist movement that you could identify for folks that were involved in kind of anti-corporal punishment with children?
Well, there's an organization that where I serve on its advisory board called EPOC USA. EPOC being an acronym for End Physical Punishment of Children, and on its advisory board are lawyers, pediatricians, psychologists, social workers, a range of people who have expertise and interest in children's issues.
Interesting. And what's Michigan as a state's status within that? 28 that have abolished it, and the 22 that have, and if it's one that has been abolished, I mean, who sort of prompted it? Was this a sort of a parent-led movement or initiative to kind of get the law changed here? Well,
before I answer that question, if I could go back to the earlier question,
sure.
I have more to add,
okay.
Which is that at this stage there is an impressive list of mainstream professional organizations and civic organizations that have taken an official stance against all corporal punishment of children. And that list includes the likes of the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Medical Association, the American Psychologists Association, National Association of Social Workers, the NAACP, has come out against school corporal punishment. I don't believe they have endorsed a position against corporal punishment in the family. The ACLU has taken a position against all corporal punishment of children. So you can see that there really is quite a spectrum of very prestigious groups that have aligned themselves against this practice. Could you remind me what your second question was?
In regards to Michigan, where does Michigan stand within the,
It's one of the 28 that have banned all public school corporal punishment of children.
Okay.
And I don't know the history of that.
Okay. Right. Well, you're speaking at the Institute for Global Education's annual meeting, and this is an organization that's been around for 25 plus years that mostly is focused around issues of, anti-war or, issues around poverty or global trade kinds of things, sort of big sort of systemic violence kinds of things. How do you sort of see your talk tonight sort of fitting in with the kind of the spirit of kind of the issues that they normally sort of try to tackle?
Well, it's a good question. It may surprise most viewers to learn that corporal punishment of children, and I'm not talking here about what we think of as physical child abuse, but corporal punishment of children, a spanking, is considered a violation of human rights law, international human rights law at this stage. And again, the trajectory is that in more and more parts of the world, national governments are complying with this international mandate. As a matter of fact, it is now up to 23 countries that have totally banned all corporal punishment of children through their national laws, and over 100 nations have banned school corporal punishment of children. So we're really behind the curve with respect to the international trend and with respect to international law. Now, why would an organization devoted to peace issues be particularly interested in corporal punishment of children? There actually is a very good reason for them to be so interested. Recall that in response to one of your earlier questions, I noted that social science now shows that corporal punishment of children is correlated with children becoming more aggressive and antisocial. What I didn't include, but what I could have included, is the fact that these dynamics that are created in the child may persist through adulthood. And so if you think about it, what are the ingredients, the necessary ingredients for people to wage war against another nation? What are the ingredients for brutal human rights violations and, various kinds of atrocities? Well, the perpetrators need to be aggressive, antisocial, and it probably doesn't hurt if they're somewhat mentally unstable. So corporal punishment seems to be a factor in creating people who are more prone to be used in wars and to carry out human rights violations that are violent.
So you would agree then that the idea that if we're trying to work towards to the abolition of war, that simultaneously we have to work for the abolition of corporal punishment?
Absolutely. I think it's essential. I think it's essential to not only minimizing war, minimizing violent human rights violations, but I think it's essential even to how we organize our societies. And in this time of economic crisis, I'd go so far as to suggest that it might be instrumental in changing how we do business. That is, one of the reasons we're in trouble now economically is that the economic sphere in the U.S. has been left unregulated, and Wall Street went crazy with unprincipled, antisocial, and aggressive behaviors. So this is a phenomenon, corporal punishment of children, that I think has very long-reaching tentacles.
Well, maybe by way of closing, if you could suggest for folks, if people are wanting to explore this issue further, are there resources, particularly for parents, or even for maybe students who are children who are old enough to high school age who sort of wanting to know what recourse do they have, where would you direct people in terms of if they're looking for more information to try to apply this in their own lives?
Well, I have published a book on the subject myself, but it is, I feel I have to give fair warning, it's pretty dry and intensely complicated.
Okay.
So I'm not sure that would be the best place, except for people who really want to delve into this in dreadful detail. It's called Corporal Punishment of Children, a Human Rights Violation. For those who don't want to subject themselves to such a chore, I would recommend that they contact the EPOC offices in Columbus, Ohio, which is included in an office that goes by the name of the Center for Effective Discipline in Columbus, Ohio. And they have many materials on these issues and could recommend books that would be helpful. However, I would add this. There is a Swiss psychologist named Alice Miller who she is well known among psychologists in the United States, but not among the general public. But her books are very readable. Actually, I have found them quite enjoyable. And she really, I think, is one of the great minds of the 20th and 21st century. And she was one of the first people to point out that there's something wrong with corporally punishing children, and in fact with raising children in a way that disrespects them. There's something morally wrong, scientifically wrong, and it's not in our self-interest because it produces adults who are very troubled and may engage in antisocial behavior. So Alice Miller, any book by Alice Miller is, I think, very edifying.
Okay, and just so people know that they can also stop by the IG office, and who has resources on sort of parenting for peace and justice if people in Grand Rapids wanted to get a hold of material. So again, thank you very much, Susan, for joining us.